Blue whales are the largest animals to ever exist on Earth. Not just the largest alive today, but the largest ever. Bigger than any dinosaur, any prehistoric sea monster, anything. They can grow over 100 feet long and weigh up to 200 tons. Their heart alone is the size of a small car. But here's the thing, being the biggest doesn't mean you're invincible. In fact, for blue whales, their size might actually be what kills them. These giants are facing so many threats that scientists are genuinely worried about whether they can survive long term. And the most brutal part? Their own massive weight becomes their enemy. So let's break down what's actually happening to these massive creatures and why being too big might be their biggest weakness. When your size becomes your enemy. Here's something most people don't realize about blue whales. They're mammals, which means unlike fish, they have to surface to breathe air. Every few minutes, even the largest of them have to push their multi-ton bodies all the way up from the deep just to take a single breath. And when you weigh over 200 tons, that's not exactly easy. When they're young, it's almost nothing. They rocket upwards with incredible strength and can breach out of the water easily. But as they age, that same journey becomes torture. Their muscles weaken, their fat stores shift, and the effort it takes to fight gravity and pressure just to reach the surface becomes extremely difficult and eventually impossible. When they become too old and too weak, their bodies are simply too heavy for their strength to hold up. It's cruel and almost ironic that the very weight that once made them untouchable behemoths is what ends up killing them. They essentially drown under their own mass, unable to make that final push to the surface for air. This is the dark side of being the biggest animal on the planet. Your size protects you from predators your entire life, but eventually, it's your size that takes you down. And if that wasn't brutal enough, the whales that do survive old age have to deal with everything else we're throwing at them. Now, if you're thinking these ocean giants deserve better, hit that subscribe button. Because if you care about the weird and brutal realities of marine life, you're going to want to stick around for what comes next. The recovery that never really happened. Let's talk about where blue whales even stand right now. Back before commercial whaling went crazy in the 1800s and 1900s, there were hundreds of thousands of blue whales cruising through the world's oceans. Then humans showed up with industrial whaling ships and decided whale oil was worth more than living whales. By the time whaling was banned in 1966, blue whale populations were absolutely destroyed. We're talking about maybe a few thousand left total. The International Whaling Commission put a global ban in place, and everyone assumed the whales would bounce back. But they haven't really recovered the way we hoped. Current estimates put the global blue whale population at somewhere between 10,000 to 25,000 individuals. That sounds decent until you realize that's still only a tiny fraction of what used to exist. The North Atlantic population is believed to be less than 1,200 whales. The North Pacific stock is estimated around 2,000. These aren't great numbers for the largest animal on the planet, and the problem is, they're not growing fast enough. Blue whales have a slow reproduction rate. Females only give birth to one calf every 2 to 3 years, and it takes years for those calves to reach maturity. So even with protection, the recovery is painfully slow. The shipping problem. Blue whales survived commercial whaling, but now they have to deal with something arguably just as dangerous. Massive cargo ships plowing through their feeding grounds at full speed. Ship strikes are one of the leading causes of blue whale deaths today. These whales migrate thousands of miles between feeding grounds in cold waters and breeding areas in warmer regions. And guess what? Their migration routes often overlap with major shipping lanes. Places like the coast of California are hotspots for both whale activity and cargo ship traffic. When a blue whale surfaces to breathe or is feeding near the surface, a massive container ship traveling at 15 to 20 knots can hit them before either party even knows what's happening. The impact can kill a whale instantly or cause injuries so severe that the whale dies slowly afterward. The crazy part is that ships often don't even realize they've hit a whale. The vessels are so large that a collision with even a 200-ton animal might barely register. Studies have shown that in some areas, ship strikes could be killing enough whales to actually prevent population recovery. Some places have tried implementing speed restrictions in whale habitats, slowing ships to around 10 knots in critical areas, and collision rates drop dramatically. But getting the entire shipping industry to comply? That's a whole different challenge. Entangled and trapped. If ship strikes weren't bad enough, blue whales also have to worry about getting tangled up in fishing gear. And I'm not talking about a little fishing line. These are massive commercial fishing nets, crab pot lines, and other industrial equipment that can weigh hundreds or even thousands of pounds. When a blue whale swims through an area with fishing gear, they can become entangled in the lines and netting. Because of their size and strength, they often break free and swim away with the gear still attached. This might sound like a win, but it's actually a death sentence. The gear restricts their movement, makes it harder to swim and surface for air, and can cut deep into their flesh, causing infections. In many cases, whales that are entangled eventually drown because they can't reach the surface to breathe, or they slowly starve because they can't feed properly while dragging all that weight around. The problem is widespread. A significant portion of blue whale deaths can be attributed to entanglement. And because these whales migrate across international waters, coordinating efforts to reduce fishing gear risks is incredibly complicated. The food chain is breaking. Here's where things get really concerning. Blue whales are filter feeders, which means they survive almost entirely on tiny shrimp like animals called krill. During feeding season, a single blue whale can consume up to 4 tons of krill per day. That's not a typo. 4 tons, daily. But krill populations are being affected by climate change. As ocean temperatures rise and ice patterns shift, particularly in polar regions where krill thrive, the availability of these tiny creatures is fluctuating wildly. Some years there's plenty, other years there's not enough. Warmer ocean waters also cause shifts in where krill populations bloom. This means blue whales have to adjust their migration patterns and feeding behaviors, which isn't easy for an animal that's been following the same routes for thousands of years. If the whales show up to their usual feeding grounds and the krill aren't there, they're out of luck. Scientists have tracked these changes and found that in some regions, krill populations have dropped significantly. Less krill means malnourished whales, which means lower reproductive success, which means fewer calves being born. It's a brutal cycle that compounds the problem of their already slow recovery. Pollution is everywhere. The ocean isn't exactly clean anymore, and blue whales are swimming through a chemical soup of pollutants. Heavy metals like mercury, industrial chemicals like PCBs, and agricultural runoff all end up in the ocean and work their way up the food chain. Blue whales filter feed on krill, and those krill have been absorbing toxins from the water and their own food sources. When blue whales consume tons of krill every day, they're also consuming whatever pollutants those krill have accumulated. This is called bioaccumulation. These chemical contaminants can weaken immune systems, impair reproduction, and cause neurological damage. Research has shown that blue whales carry significant levels of toxins in their tissue, and it's affecting their overall health and ability to reproduce successfully. Then there's the microplastics issue. These tiny plastic particles are everywhere in the ocean now, and krill ingest them along with their normal food. When blue whales eat contaminated krill, they're also ingesting microplastics. The long-term effects aren't fully understood yet, but early research suggests it could cause digestive issues and potentially interfere with reproduction. So, too big to survive? Blue whales are so massive that they have no natural predators besides humans. Their size made them the kings of the ocean for millions of years. But that same size means they literally drown when they get too old to carry their own weight. It means they need massive amounts of food that's becoming scarce. It means they're perfect targets for ship strikes. It means they're more likely to encounter fishing gear in the vast areas they roam. Being the biggest animal on Earth used to be an advantage. Now it might be their biggest liability. They can't adapt quickly enough to the rapid changes humans have caused. They can't avoid ships moving at high speeds through their habitat. They can't survive on less food when krill populations crash. And eventually, their own bodies betray them. Blue whales are a reminder that size doesn't equal survival. Sometimes being too big for this world means you need the rest of us to be a little more careful. If you found this eye-opening and want to see more content about the ocean's most fascinating creatures, smash that like button and subscribe. Because these stories matter, and the more people who know about them, the better chance we have at making.
Thanks for watching.